Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. And we are flying solo this morning. Looking forward to talking with you, the audience, this morning. Uh, at least two, and here's some of the things we're going to talk about. At least two police departments, one in Columbus, Ohio, the other in Miami, are celebrating Black History Month in a way some observers are not happy with. We will tell you about what's bothering Black Twitter and others. And with critical race theory and the banning of black books and refusal of mostly Republican run jurisdictions to teach history, more and more African Americans are homeschooling their children. We will discuss that as well. Also, in Mississippi, oh, good old Mississippi. Lawmakers are up to usual tricks, and this time they've managed to pass a law that allows them to appoint judges in Jackson who may not be qualified and who don't have the support of local voters. Also, LeBron James is the king of NBA scoring. King James set a record this week that probably will never be broken. We will discuss that as well. But first, more and more Black families are turning to homeschooling. But the past 6 years, I should say, uh, saw a significant increase. Of course, the pandemic played a role in that. It was a small role, but they played a now since the pandemic. Black parents have decided that's enough. Forget Ron DeSantis, forget Glenn Abbott in Texas, forget all these guys who don't want to teach our children history. At the onset of the pandemic, for instance, just to give you an example, 3.3% of Black families were homeschooling their children, but that share increased to over 16% by the fall of 2000, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's Household Pulse survey. These newcomers joined hundreds of Black homeschooling families who have spent years growing the practice, forming their own communities like African American homeschool moms in New Jersey, Stewart's Homegrown Homeschoolers Incorporated in the Houston area, and the Cultural Roots Co op in Virginia, among others. Now, of course, critical race theory and the theatrics that the Republicans have done to forbade the teaching of real history, it appears more and more are still signing up for homeschool. Traditionally, we know that white families who make up most of the country's homeschoolers list religion and negative peer pressure in their decisions to homeschool, according to a survey from the National Center for Education Statistics. But Black families cite the unique circumstances of simply being Black in America as fueling their dissatisfaction with traditional schooling. The racial disparities in education, as well as other disparities that Black folks have to face, is well documented. Black students are more likely to be over disciplined in schools, have campuses with a lot of police, metal detectors, and security cameras. And Black students are particularly vulnerable to being falsely labeled with emotional or intellectual disorders. They try to get rid of us, y'all. But you know what? We find a way. I got a friend of mine's, he ends all his emails, find a way or make a way. That's what uh, we're just used to, right? I mean, I see Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times in the audience. Uh, and I know she has some thoughts on that, but that's what we're used to, finding a way or making a way. And that's why African Americans continue to be special and not the Jerry Lewis special. Paris says, is segregation better for us? He says, I love the environment at Howard University. And it's so funny because back, of course, as you know, in the 1960s, the big fight in 1950s, 1960s for to end segregation, and now schools are more segregated than they ever have been in the history of this country. Can you believe that? Segregated, yet we can't get enough teachers, uh, Black teachers, understandably so, because they don't want to pay the teachers, but we can't get them to teach history, Black history, which is American history. And so a lot of Black families are taking it upon themselves as, you know what, they can get what they need by just being at home and homeschooling. So here we are. Speaking of Black history, At least we're going to turn our attention to this travesty. Yesterday was interesting because we brought you a story about the school lunch folks, Aramark, and their racist Black History Month menu for schools. Today, two police departments, one in Columbus, Ohio, the other in Miami. This is how they're celebrating Black History Month. And a lot of people are just not happy. The Columbus Division of Police unveiled its History One cruiser this month, designed in colors and symbols reflecting Black pride and culture. A short video shared by the department on Twitter shows the cruiser with red, black, yellow, and green stripes behind the words Black History Month on the front and side, and the Martin Luther King quote, "Be the peace you wish to see in the world." That's on the back window. The video includes audio of King's famous I Have a Dream speech. The cruiser is supposed to celebrate, and they say in quotes, the achievements of African Americans and recognize their roles in our history. And this is according to the police department. It also said that citizens should stay on the lookout for the cruiser as it patrols through their community and neighborhoods this month. More than 1,000 miles south, though, in Miami, the city's police department introduced its own Black History Month themed car on Thursday. They decorated it in red, yellow, and green with symbols of Black fist and Black power. And you know what? This stuff it absolutely kills me. It kills me. It- First of all, Public Enemy said it best long, long time ago. They want to give Black History Month the shortest month of the year. And then they want to pull these stunts to say, look, see, it's like after George Floyd died, right? All these companies and corporations and folks, oh, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And where are they now? As silent as they were pre-George Floyd, even with the murder of Tyree Nichols. But the Miami officers put the car in a historically Black neighborhood there. Again, I don't know what kind of goodwill they expected to build. It's just so Black Twitter said that they I can't even repeat some of the things Black Twitter is saying. Paris Brown, I'm gonna say what Paris Brown is saying. Though. It looks like a responsibility we need to own with our own solution. That's regarding the previous story, but she says, should we say they are trying? Is this their best effort? Probably so, Paris. That this probably is their best effort because the stuff that they're doing is just simply I'd like to sit, and this is the problem, right? Because I'd like to sit in those decision-making rooms, and in those rooms, obviously, they're making these decisions with nobody who looks like us. They're making these decisions on a whim. Who does this stuff? I mean, and then of course they pull out the Black officers. You see in the picture, they pull out the Black officers, and they stand them in front. Then what do they do for the rest of the year? Right, the other 11 months, they go back to. I tell you what they do. They go back to beating and killing Black people. Is what they do. Cheryl Smith says, "Do for self." Yeah, absolutely. But even with that, they try to interfere in that. I'm starting to sound like Barrington. So this is about to be a dangerous next 10, 15 minutes. Um, Paris, yeah, Paris. It is called a photo op. But yeah, keep writing in. Let me know because I'm gonna drive myself crazy talking to y'all about this stuff. Um, did Black officers play a role in the decision? Likely not. I didn't see that anywhere, Paris. And they did not. Cheryl says do for self, but Cheryl, what else can we do? Cheryl, what else can we do? Talk to me, Cheryl Smith. Cheryl Smith of the Texas Metro News and the NABJ Hall of Famer herself. She is awesome. We have fun in Puerto Rico, Cheryl, in Paris. This was one of our best conferences. And of course, the weather was just off the chain for those who were stuck in minus degree temperatures. Yes, I'm rubbing it in. Let's turn our attention though to something serious. In Mississippi, something else serious, I should say. In Mississippi, Mississippi is off the chain. I've said this on this program before, and we have some folks who live in Mississippi. We got papers in Mississippi. Couldn't pay me to live in Mississippi. Not under the rule that it is today. It's just it just reminds me so much, and they want to continue to remind their black citizens, especially, that uh, that was a hotbed of oppression. Has always been a hotbed of oppression. I like what Jay Z. I'm gonna get to the point, y'all, but I gotta kind of set myself up here. But I like what Jay Z and Rock Nation did. With Parchment Prison, which was a disaster, and I'm sure it's still pretty much a disaster. But they made them clean it up. Um, and we brought that story recently that Rock Nation pulled this lawsuit after they were uh, satisfied with new conditions there, and was able to film and do a documentary in there, which I'm sure we'll see the documentary pretty soon about Parchment Prison from Rock Nation. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and particularly how they were able to clean that place. Human beings, yeah, they committed crimes, but my goodness, unless they were like Charles Manson, nobody should be in conditions like that. But the Republican controlled Mississippi House has passed a bill to create a new court district in part of the capital city of Jackson, with judges who would be appointed rather than elected. Of course, Black Democrats pushed back real hard against House Bill 1020 during a nearly 5-hour debate. They argued that the measure unconstitutionally strips voting rights from many residents in the majority Black city. And I see Bobby Henry watching from the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale. And certainly, I'm sure you can relate, Bobby, when we talk about, and Cheryl in Texas too, under that governor. Uh, Voting rights, stripping voting rights from many residents in the majority Black city. That's exactly the plan, right? One thing about Republicans, whether you like them or not, um, they're like they always the villains in these like going back to these cartoons and stuff. They're like the villains. They conjure up, they plot, they'll go underground on you and start doing these devious plans. Just like with we talked a lot last year about Roe v. Wade, how the Republicans for almost 50 years plotted to take that down, to get the Supreme Court in place that would remove it, that would abolish it, and they did. This is what they do. They have that type of deviousness. Want to call it a resolve, but that's like putting like kindness on it. They are devious. Paris Brown says strategic, but they're devious. They get it done. If that's what it takes, going back to Cheryl Smith just blew my mind. She says, "I'm still here in Puerto Rico." You go, girl. Um, but they are, yes, Paris. They are relentless. And yes, she says, I guess, obviously, she's talking about Democrats need to utilize the same tactics. Democrats don't have the resolve. They've shown that they don't have the resolve. They want to try and um, you know bring peace their way. And you know what Malcolm X said: "By any means necessary." And sometimes when they had that. We argued about that for a couple of years. They had the majority in the House. They had the majority in the Senate, and they had the presidency. And that's when, right, that was right after, of course, the 45, right? And at that point in time, it seems to me is when you say, you know what, let's crush them now. But instead, Democrats, oh, let's work with them. You can't work with a Margie Taylor Greene. You can't work with a Lauren Boebert. You cannot work with a McCarthy. You can't work with George Santos. So Sarah says Democrats are weak. Yeah, you can't work. There's some people people I can't get along with, or people I can't reason with. I cannot stand trying to talk to a person who cannot be reasoned with, because everybody should be able to state a case on something, but state it coherently and make it make sense. You can't sit down. You might be, Tim Scott. That guy so far gone, you can't reason with him. He's a puppet, and puppets, they have no brain. You know, I mean, guys, I just said Tim Scott has no brain. Now I'm gonna get in trouble. But um, it's just the way it is. Republicans have this knack for just that, like I said, like that villain in the cartoon. They just sit in a corner and they start and all this black smoke comes up, and it's like wow. And you see the thing that comes over the head with what they're saying or thinking, the bubble, and they're like, "We're gonna get him. We're gonna get him." And evil lives a long time. It lives a long time. And so they are able to conquer what they set out to conquer. Paris Brown is trying to go biblical on us now. She's writing in that it's a biblical edict. There's a time for peace and a time for war and fighting. We need to get things done when we have the majority. Now we meaning Democrats, obviously. Um, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't. So when you say we, I have to make sure I clarify. But when they had the majority, they needed to get things done. But then you had your Joe Mansions of the world and your Kirsten Cinemas of the world that who pose as Democrats. They wear the D, but they you know go with the R's. So that kind of zapped the majority. But anyway, so this is what's going on in Mississippi. Long story short, right? This is what's going on in Mississippi, and they said that they're creating a city within a city. Bobby Henry says, "I think Nina Simone said it best about Mississippi." Oh, Bobby be coming up with some one-liners that sometimes I don't want to repeat them. He says a white supermajority of the Mississippi House voted after an intense 4+ hour. Didn't I just say that, Bobby? That would be appointed completely by. That's what I'm talking about, Bobby. Give me something else. Give me something I haven't said. Bobby Henry, the West Side Gazette. Bobby won. We gave Dr. Chavis the Lifetime Achievement Award last week. Last year, Bobby Henry was the recipient of the NMPA's Lifetime Achievement Award. Again, well deserved on both ends, Dr. Chavis and Bobby Henry. Yeah, Bobby is a type of guy you sit down with, you have a glass of scotch with, and you could talk about whatever. He says that's because I came on late. So Bobby, that tells you the early bird gets the worm. So come on early next time. In fact, you need to join us. So listen, LeBron James, and so many people love King James. He was anointed the chosen one on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a 17-year-old. Y'all remember that? 17 years old, LeBron James was anointed as the chosen one. Well, this high school star who was so good, he didn't go to college and play in college, but he fulfilled that prophecy, breaking a record with 38,388 points during season 20 of his illustrious career. The Los Angeles Lakers forward scored the record breaking basket in front of a home crowd Tuesday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder, overtaking a milestone that stood for nearly 39 years and was held by none other than the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers and former Milwaukee Bucks center. LeBron broke the record with a fadeaway with 10.9 seconds left in the third quarter. The crowd erupted, and King James shared a hug with his mother. The game was paused in celebration, and the presentation was played on the video screens above, showing moments of his remarkable career. And Kareem handed James the basketball on the court and shook his hands as LeBron wiped his eyes and thanked his family and the fans, and of course the NBA. He began the game needing just 36 points. And we say just because we're talking about a guy who can score 20 points without even leaving the bench. And so he captured the record and considered that many considered unbreakable. But I guarantee you, none of us, if that record is ever broken again, none of us will be alive to witness it. It will not be broken again. And so the debate, of course, the debate of debates. Who's the greatest? LeBron, Jordan, um, Kobe. We certainly can't leave Kobe Bryant out of the conversation of who's the greatest. Um, but I still say that people like Kareem have been underestimated, underrated when it comes to the conversations of the greatest. Bill Russell, of course, winning what a total of 12 NBA championships. So if you go by, titles, then you got to go to Bill Russell, right? Um, different eras. That's what we keep hearing. Different eras. When Michael Jordan plays, sure enough, there's no question. I'm not. Gosh, I'm so unpopular. I'm not a Michael Jordan fan. Um, and he played in an era where it was it was rough. They didn't make these as they call ticky tack foul calls that they do today. And I remember watching my New York Knicks was the most rugged team of the 90s. And of course, Isaiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys, nobody was more intense defensively and more rugged than the bad boys from Detroit. And I always say, again, unpopular opinion, well, no, unpopular fact. Michael Jordan couldn't beat those guys. They were too much. Isaiah, Bill Laimbeer, um, Rodman, my man, the microwave, all of those guys in Detroit, Joe Dumars. He couldn't overcome them. It wasn't until they were wrapping up their careers that he was able to get over that hump. So I'm biased. My little sister says too many factors besides just scoring to determine the greatest, but they're all great players. It's true. You got to do more than just score. I've said that because otherwise you'd have to say somebody. You have to mention the name. My favorite Nick of all time, Bernard King. Bernard could score, uh, like I said about LeBron from the bench. He'd score 20 from the bench. Um, so look, that would be a debate that people just have for just for the sake of having. There are people who are really passionate about it. But for my money, I still like the NBA of the 80s and early 90s than I do today. I go to some of the games, but I don't watch it on TV because it just doesn't keep my attention anymore. They have destroyed the game. You could take 4 steps and not be called a walk. So, look, I'm done with the NBA on that level. But congratulations to the one and only King James for breaking Kareem Skyhook Abdul-Jabbar's record. Y'all remember the Skyhook? What happened to the sky? That was unstoppable. Nobody does the Skyhook anymore. And it was there it is. It was such an unstoppable shot. Nobody could stop Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's Skyhook, and yet no one has really tried to duplicate that. David Youngblood says he's late too, Bobby. He's with you. Y'all must have been hanging out together last night. But David, why haven't anyone else tried the sky hook? And because it was unstoppable. It was totally it was and it's synonymous with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and nobody else did it before him, and nobody has done it afterwards. And he was the all-time scoring champion for a long time. And there it is. I'm glad we can before we close, finally got somebody who know what they're talking about. David Youngblood. Leave it to David. Bill Russell is the GOAT. Thank you so much, David. I am in your corner. That's what I was trying to say. Bill Russell is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. The late Bill Russell. What a guy. What a guy. So Bobby wants to chime in. For me to be the greatest of all time, you got to have some social action under your belt. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's lifetime as a social justice champion is a record no athlete will break. Wow. There you go. Well, what about Muhammad Ali as far as athletes are concerned? And those Jesse Owens. But you make a great point, Bobby. Wow. Well, speaking of, I did a Freudian slip when I was saying Michael Jordan. I said Michael Jackson. Well, we got a program coming up on Michael Jackson and Beyonce. Y'all got to stay tuned for that. It's one that I'm sure will be a talker. Um, it's Claudette Perry says, "I'm with you, Bobby." Um, so we got another vote for Kareem, while David Youngblood says, "I want you to join Stacy to talk about Lake uh, County and Sheriff Bill McCall." Oh boy. So there you go. Bobby, we've been called out. We need to talk about Lake County and Sheriff Bill McCall. So we'll be talking about that, Bobby. But yeah, I wanted to kind of set up what we plan to do tomorrow morning. It's going to be the Bay Hive and or the Beehive. Which is it, Bay? They call it Bay, or is they call it Bay? But Beyonce's fandom and Michael Jackson's fandom debate tomorrow on this program. Let it be known who has the most avid fan base. I have an answer to that question. I have an answer to that question, but I want your answers. We're gonna talk. We're gonna mix in some others: Elvis's fan base, the Beatles fan base. But just a little heads up: neither one of those fan base combined can touch Beyonce or Michael Jackson's fan bases, as fanatical as their fan bases are. Um, we just gonna talk about the king and queen of pop. Beyonce and Michael Jackson, undisputed. That's something, everybody knows that my favorite, and I'm the biggest Prince fan you'll find. But I know that Prince did not have the reach or the popularity of Michael Jackson, um, as far as the fandom is concerned anyway. So we'll talk about all of that tomorrow, because it's Friday. Friday, we like to let our hair down, so to speak. Um, because sometimes we have people on here that have no hair. So that's why I say so to speak. So anyway, Power 96, I'll leave it with you. Ali, Kareem, LeBron, and Jesse Owens. The rest of the athletes are just trying to catch up. And again, on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., our president, CEO, and the rest of the squad, congratulations to LeBron James. 38,388 points. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers megastar. Thank you for bearing with us this morning and dealing with just me on my own. Somebody sang a song that said on my own. I'm not going to sing to you this morning. I'm just going to say, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.